Someone who is a star on social media is also a star on the Spittin Chiclets podcast, and no stranger to these airwaves. Give away Paul Bissonnette, a.k.a. as Biznasty. Now, you're in Boston with the Chiclets crew right now. I'm suspecting you're doing podcasts once trade deadline is done. If you and Whit had to go on right now, you, Whit, and R.A. had to go on right now and talk about one thing so far from trade deadline, which is the big story mover for you, Paul Bissonnette?
Oh man, I told you guys not to put me on the spot. You're supposed to put me on put him on the tee for me. I say as far as the gamble and giving up a 4th round pick, I like the move Avalanche made for Nemestikov. Is that how you say it?
Vladislav Nemestikov. Yep.
Nemestikov. Yeah, I mean, I just feel like he would fit well into that offense, and they kind of just let them fly over in Colorado. And as far as what they gave up for him, I see no risk attached to it. We all know the numbers as far as, you know, what percentage of players in the 4th round end up playing games in the NHL. So I see no problem with it. And I feel like it's one of those undercover moves.
What about the Pajot trade? Sorry.
Guys, can we hang on? Guys, can we hang on one sec? Biz, hang on one second. We have an update from Elliot Friedman, the trade breakers.
Oh, jeez.
Well, you know, obviously there's reports out there about Zach Parise and the Islanders, and this is kind of what I can tell you. This is something that was discussed last summer. The Islanders and the Wild talked about this, and it didn't happen. Andrew Ladd was going to be in the deal, and eventually it didn't happen. And I think it's rekindled. It's complicated, from what I've been told, in terms of salary retention, contracts going to make it back and forth. But I think they have talked about it. I think the other thing that happens here is there is a Lou Lamoriello fear, is if anything gets out before he's ready to announce it, does it happen? So I think that between all of that, I think there's something going on. It's just not done. Biz?
Wow, Lou's up to his old antics. Hey, he's got to have his hands in everything. So he wants to be the one breaking trades. Tell him to get a Twitter account. He could break the trades.
Brian
he could be an insider and GM.
Berkey, you know Lou well. Any chance of him getting a Twitter account anytime soon?
Yeah, and there flies a pig right by the window. No.
Being joined by Paul Bissonnette, part of our NHL trade deadline coverage. Kelly?
So, Paul, what did you think of the Pajot trade?
I liked it. I thought maybe a 1st rounder was a little bit much at first, but apparently they have agreed to an extension, correct?
Yep.
Am I wrong here? So I would have to see the numbers as far as what that deal is, but we're going to have to wait for Lou to tweet it out.
We're waiting for a while. Louis, you have something for Paul?
Well, you know, there's been a real premium on role players, Paul, and I know you're a role player yourself. I was too, but in the playoffs, it's a different game. You see guys like Grant that were picked up. I even consider Patrick Marleau to be a guy that has stability now as a role player. Simmons goes to Buffalo trying to make a race to get in there. What do you make of that with teams in the skill game we have today? They're looking for those guys that can come in and play heavy minutes.
Yeah, I was actually surprised no team that's more of a contender took a stab at Simmons. I guess nice for Buffalo fans that the organization cares and is showing the fact that they are going to try to make a run. Now they're going to have to go on a bit of a heater here to end the season in order to get in. But, I mean, it's very important. I mean, I can't think of it off the top of my head right now, but Nate Thompson ended up going over to Philadelphia, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that move too.
Yeah, like a guy who's really good in the face-off circle and you know, who's a bit of a repairman. If you need a big D-zone draw and he gets hot in playoffs and you're winning those types of – it's the little things matter so much come playoff time. And I think those types of moves are very important, especially when you're able to get them with no real risk involved. I mean, I don't know what went back to Montreal.
Draft pick.
Yeah, like a late rounder.
I think it was
5th, I think.
5th, I think.
Yeah, like to me, that's a great move, and I see no problem with that. And we all know Thompson's story, so I wish him the best there in a crazy hockey fan base that deserves a little bit of playoff hockey.
Being joined by Paul Bissonnette of the Spittin Chiclets podcast. Now, listen, you always one of those guys that had the reputation of being fantastic in the room. Players love when you're around. You kept it light. You know, when guys would be down, you'd be the one to pick them up. Was that different on trade deadline day? Like, did things around you and your team get serious on deadline day, or could you still prank guys?
Well, early on in my time with Phoenix, when it was called the Phoenix Coyotes, we we weren't supposed to do very well, like at least on paper going into the season. And Dave Tippett was able to make playoffs his first 3 years there as head coach. And it was kind of nice because my first 3 years we were adding guys to the locker room, and really in the grand scheme of things, I don't think we gave much up in those 3 years where you had to trade away a guy that you were really friends with. So it was exciting times my first 3 years, and we weren't really big sellers my last 2 years there, but it is a big lift to the locker room when you get a couple guys who you feel like can help solve your problems and get to the end. I mean, specifically my first year, I remember us picking up Wojtek Wolski and Lee Stepniak. I believe that was my first year. And they really did well when they came over. And unfortunately, we ran into those hot Detroit Red Wings teams and got beat out both years in the first round.
Who are some of, you mentioned a couple of players coming in, who are some of the guys that, listen, the reality of the industry is trades, we all know that, and we have an entire day dedicated to here of expensive network time, but who are some of the guys that you really hated to see leave your room?
Oh, God. I mean, like I said, I can't think of one big name off the top of my head, and I know that people are probably tweeting at me right now being like, you didn't miss this guy. As I said, we were buyers, and I'm sorry if I can't give a good example off the top of my head.
All right, then can you bring Witt and RA aboard? I understand they're behind you somewhere.
Yeah, let's go. I'll send Grinelli to go over and get Witt. We have Josh Hennessy here, a guy I played against in the top prospects game. And of course, he was picked in the second round of the 2003.
Hang on a second here. So that was the game where you fought Dion Phaneuf.
Correct. Yeah, he said that's the only thing he can remember from the game.
What was the backstory on that one, Biz? Because once upon a time, those were all prearranged.
Hey, if you think I look,
you kidding me, boys? 3 for $1. Hey, Berkey, you chirping us, I hear?
Not yet. Not yet. I'm gonna tell them how we had to get square pucks at the Olympics in Vancouver for your practices.
Yeah, I was the guy on the bench making everyone up.
New guy.
Louis on there?
New guy.
Louis?
Yeah, Louis here. Louis here.
How you doing, bud?
Louis, what an interview of your son. Jeez, you kept it professional.
That was awesome.
Thanks, buddy.
Hey, Biz, I think I
appreciate
traded Stempy to you guys that time in 2004 from Calgary.
Biz doesn't remember. Are you kidding me?
Oh,
Look at him right
4.
now.
No,
No?
I can't go past 2010. I've lost it all.
I traded him
We've
there.
all lost.
14,
We've
sorry,
all lost
14,
the
not
mind.
04.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to, actually, maybe I'll just personalize this one for RA, who's the most responsible of the Spittin Chiclets members. Biz didn't want to answer this one, so he sort of filibustered a little bit. But, RA, you're hosting the podcast today. Right now, you go to the airwaves. What is the most important story you are talking about right now?
I think it's the E-Bug story right now.
Oh, yeah,
David A is the huge story right now. But from a trade perspective, I think the Vinny Trocheck trade is big because I'm not sure how it improves the Panthers today.
Oh!
RA's taking shot on the national.
That's okay. You're allowed to do that.
Sorry, the Panthers?
Okay, well, listen, you Spittin Chiclet boys, what do you guys think of the Boston moves?
Sit down.
Think of the Boston moves?
Yeah, Kasha and Richie.
I kind of like. I mean, Heinen. I'd say all year I've watched him. I don't know how much he gets done. So maybe Richie adds a little more physical element to it, things like that. I kind of understood that deal. I mean, they waived his brother, right? So now he's there. I guess his bragging rights forever. You got rid of him. They got rid of you for me, bro. That's how he gets to approach it.
Yeah, they need to get tough. I mean, they got pushed around the cup last year, and they know they need to be tougher. I'm not sure if Kevin Miller's going to be back still. That was a huge loss not having him last year. So they don't want to get pushed around again like they did last year.
Okay, listen, RA, I know you're a dyed-in-the-wool Boston guy. I know one of your highlights was 2011 Stanley Cup victory in Vancouver. That story is well told. I know it didn't end well for Joe Thornton and the Boston Bruins. But if at the end of this day, Joe Thornton is a Boston Bruin and leads the Bruins to the Stanley Cup, is that not the story of the season?
Oh, it would absolutely be a terrific bookend for his career. I mean, the Bruins fans don't have any animosity whatsoever to Joe. We're still shocked that he got traded for what he got traded for. Nobody wanted to see him go anywhere. They just signed him to that nice deal. I think his game was still maturing. Having said that, I'm not sure he'd become the player he did become if he didn't get traded. But if he came back, I know Boston would welcome him with open arms. And then bitch and complain about where they put him in the lineup.
Can I say something? The last time Joe Thornton was a Bruin, I was at BU. We were at Dad's Diner, and we were like, "There's Joe Thornton, the legend." So hopefully he comes back, and then the college guys can still see him at the bar. That'd be a real round trip for you.
I got one question though: who's paying the fine for RA swearing?
Oh!
Did I swear?
Did you drop one? I missed it. You
I
guys
missed
catch
it too. I didn't get it.
catch it.
Well, then
All
we'll
right,
just.
let's hope they
let's do
did
it
too.
again.
Biz created in his mind. He's just hearing voices.
I gotta lay off the cat.
We said that before about Biz.
Hey,
He's a nice
love you
bunch of
guys.
guys. Listen,
Love all you guys. Hey, tell Versteeg to tell the story when he got scratched in Washington with me and flipped all the pucks in the stands.
all right, well, that's coming up next.
I can hear him laughing
that lounge.
now.
You can hear Versteeg
Hey,
laughing in the
hey.
background.
And tell BX to take off that Louis Vuitton belt. He's got enough going for himself. He doesn't need to wave it in our face.
All right, so you're doing David Amber's job for him. DA's got a really easy next segment. They are hockey's version of the Beastie Boys. Screen cap that shop. When does the album
Oh, yeah,
drop,
and more-
boys?
Or
And
the
more
Three Stooges.
more videos of Army getting pumped too.
Love it. Chirps going around.
There's no shortage of those.
There's a lot of videos of that.
Awesome stuff. Thanks,
we love
boys.
you guys. Be well.